Hi everyone, you're welcome to the Edfields Podcast, your everyday podcast, and I'm happy to have you join us for this episode. My name is Jasmine Asiedu. Now, Ghana's rental market for many is the first encounter with the real estate industry. For many prospective tenants, they are usually faced with the ordeal of paying for so much rent for either a year or 2 years rent in advance, and you would usually have to make this payment in full and upfront. Now, today our discussion will focus on rent advance and also would look at whether it is important to create a ban on rent advance and or possibly criminalize the act. And so today I have a host of strong legal minds to discuss this very important topic. I have here with me today Erasmus. Erasmus, you're welcome. Good to have you here.
Thank you very much.
All right, we have Eunice. Eunice, you're welcome. And of course, we have Prince. Prince, you're welcome to today's show.
Thank you. I'm told Eunice is the only landlord here.
Yes. She says she would never rent. She would only bill and rent out. So let's see whether we can also put her in check as a prospective landlord. So you're welcome to today's show. Now, I've tried to give a little brief of what today's topic really is. But of course, Erasmus, for the benefit of our listeners, can you just give us a gist of what exactly rent advance is and why it really matters? Why do we have to spend time talking about it?
So rent advance typically is the practice where a prospective tenant is required to pay in advance or is required to pay an entire rent for which covers a duration of period upfront. So what that means or what that looks like is that if the rent is supposed to be for a 2-year duration, the rent which is payable within those 2 years are paid upfront before a prospective tenant is allowed the opportunity to move into the premises. Now, one of the unique features is that during that period, you freeze your obligation as a tenant of your rent payment obligation. So instead of paying periodically over a month or maybe over a short period of time, during the period of your stay, you don't pay any rent. So everything is paid upfront before you move in. Now, this is important because and this conversation is important. We have to look at it from the perspective of the tenant and from the perspective of the landlord. Now, from the landlord's perspective, I think one of the main reasons why these measures are in place or rent advance has become fairly common is that during the period of tenancy, there's a possibility of defaulting tenant.
Okay.
And so this mechanism, it's meant to check that. Now, it's also meant to hedge against inflation. So we are looking at situations where the housing market may get out of hand. So these are some of the reasons why landlords typically decide to request for rent advance. Another reason why it's also important is because there are instances when there may be maintenance, so they want to maintain the property.
Do they even do it?
Well,
Eunice, do they even do it?
Oh, some do.
Yes, some do. Yes. Now, on the part of the tenant, it's also presents a situation where tenants are also not at the mercy of landlords who could decide to increase rent arbitrarily. So in a way, it may look onerous and sometimes it's quite difficult to come up with money up front to pay the rent. But it's very important for us to have this discussion because there's a law that governs rent in Ghana and payment of rent in Ghana, but oftentimes we tend not to, or it's not heeded to. And so this conversation is an education to the audience and to both landlords and tenants as to their respective obligations in a rent agreement.
Wow. Oh, that's great. That's great.
You see, Jasmine,
yes.
I think that most of the countries I know,
Yes.
all of them apply what we call rent advance.
Okay.
Whether UK, US, you pay for that month before the month starts, or once the month starts, you pay.
Okay.
And then at the end of the month, you pay for the next month.
Oh,
So it's
still rent advance.
The difference is as to how many months people take, how many years people take, how much. Before we got here, I wanted to really understand the whole system of rent control, because advance payment is one of the mechanisms of controlling rent in Ghana. Rent control, it started from somewhere, pre-colonial and colonial times. The first of which was right after the Second World War, where everywhere, every economy was affected by inflation. And in Ghana, they realized that, people were struggling from the effects of the war. So they had to regulate rent so that landlords like Eunice will not get up one day and say that my one-bedroom apartment, I'm taking 6,000 per month.
Can you imagine?
And that's how the control started. So it progressed from let's control how much you take for a month to let's regulate how many months you can take as advance. And I think that where we've gotten to, we've actually forgotten where the law started and at what circumstance the laws were made and the prevailing circumstances now. Today I'm ready for you. You are a landlord.
I'm happy about that. But I think Erasmus had talked about a legal framework for rent, and you have also confirmed that some law was put in place to cure a certain problem, given a historical background of why the law even came about. So, Eunice, maybe you should give us, we do have a legal framework. What sort of legal framework do we have for rent advance and maybe even rent as a whole?
So there are a number of legislations, and I think Prince has already laid the premise for it. So we have the Rent Act, which was passed as far back as 1963. I wasn't even born then. We have the Rent Control Law as well, which was also passed 1986, and recently the Land Act. But if you should take the Rent Act, that is the primary legislation governing the relationship between landlords and tenants. And it has a number of important legislation. I think Erasmus has already stated the rent advance bit, and it caps the rent advance to 6 months. So you can't even go beyond the 6 months. It criminalizes it. So let me be specific. It criminalizes it. So landlords are supposed to take rent in advance beyond 6 months advance rents. Let me put it that way. And also we have the rent control department, and usually the legislation that's the rent control law. So it spells out the functions of the rent control department and all that. And I think the most important provisions in relation to the Rent Act has to do with the advance, which is obviously the topic for today. And the issue that I have personally has to do with the functions of the Rent Control Department, as to whether or not they are exercising those functions well, because it gives them a number of rights that if they are supposed to exercise. So I think the debate with landlords are wicked and tenants are suffering would probably end. So let's take, for instance, if you take the rent control law, it gives them the right to assess their rent recoverable. But the issue is, as I am a landlord, I have my property. Are you the one to determine how I should charge rent and all those things? But clearly there's a law for that. Even single rooms and other things, the law has defined a schedule for it specifically as to the amount to charge. But this was as far back as 1986.
And there has been no amendments on that?
Nothing that I know of, unless maybe Prince can convince me.
So, Prince, I mean, having looked at a brief legal framework of rent, does it mean that the provisions of the Rent Act or whatever legal framework we have is incomplete?
I have certain ideas as to how laws are supposed to be assessed. For me, if you have a law whose enforcement is difficult, there are only two things involved. Either the law was not properly made, or that law is actually archaic.
Okay.
If it was not properly made, you go back to the drawing board, you make amendments. If it's archaic, you repeal. Let me give you two examples. The Rent Control Law and then the Rent Act. If you take a very critical look at it, there is a provision in there that every tenancy agreement is supposed to be registered.
Okay.
The reason was to check this advance and then to check what we call rent recoverable. To see, okay, there's a property at East Legon. The rent magistrate or the rent control officer has assessed that that place you are supposed to be charging 800 cedis a month. Once you are able to, or once you follow the law and you register the tenancy agreement, rent control knows that this particular property, this is how much you are supposed to charge. And the agreement is saying that you should pay 6 months in advance.
Let me just pause. So just like the tax office would do an assessment for tax,
Yes.
you are saying that the rent control department is expected to do an assessment
Yes.
of every property which is supposed to be put out for rent?
Yes, and it is at the instance of either the prospective tenant, the one who is interested in that property that he wants or she wants to rent, or the actual owner who is a landlord going to say that, come and do the assessment for me. But the point is, have you ever seen that?
Oh.
You see, have you ever heard a landlord or a tenant saying, oh, I'm going to the rent control to register my agreement? Even the agreement, they don't want to give people.
They don't want to show it.
Oh.
Just to step in, just may will even shock you that as per the registration, it's even a precondition for the landlords to even demand rent.
That's the
so
point.
if you have not registered a lease or a tenancy agreement, you are not even supposed to demand rent in the first place. I think it all comes down to ignorance because most people don't know.
For me, you see, because you are a
landlord.
You're saying ignorance. For me, it is a product of a failed system.
Yeah.
When you have a system that is on its knees, these are some of the things you find. These are some of the things you face. Do you know that the same law says that when the landlord, when you give someone a premises, or when you rent out something like that, you are supposed to give them a card?
Oh, I'm fully aware, but the point is,
have you ever given anyone a card? I said you have on your neck. Have you given someone a card?
I'm not asking.
You see the mentality.
People are not asking. So now
before.
it's been imposed that responsibility is now shifted to the tenant to request for the card.
I think I have to report her because she's taking.
I guess the rent commissioner is watching right now.
But on a more serious note, these are some of the mechanisms that the government wanted to use to regulate that industry. Once those two are not working, you should understand that, see, it is never going to be a good system. And it is an industry that anyone who owns a property would actually not want to be regulated.
Yeah.
You see, the question is, when I was going to buy my cement, you didn't even inquire how many I'm supposed to use.
That's what Uni said.
So why is it that now it is a building and you are interested in that building and how much I take?
Taking a loan to build that property.
Huh.
How do I pay
Yes,
that loan?
but people have taken loans to buy cars and we are telling them how to drive them.
I know, right?
Yes. So we say that where your rights end, that's where some people's obligations and rights also begin.
Yeah, so it must be regulated and regulated well.
You see,
I think you are failing to understand landlords here.
I don't.
I'm not
Make
attacking
us,
them.
make us
I
understand
understand,
landlords
but
as a landlord.
I understand this is what the law says,
Yeah.
but from a landlord's perspective, Maybe my tenant might be a seasonal worker, someone who doesn't have a regular source of income and all those things. And you're expecting me to cap it at what, 6 months?
So you see, the problem now, I will let you come in. I don't want it to be a banter between Eunice and I. But you see, she is treating situations on ad hoc basis. And that's one of the symptoms of a failed system. Where you look at someone's face, you say, you look at like a rich man. So this is what is supposed to apply to you. You look like a person who doesn't have a regular source of income. So no, there's supposed to be a standard. The standard is what the law wanted to put in place, but there's no one to check that. There's no one to enforce it. And that's what I'm saying. I'm not even blaming the landlords. I'm blaming the system. The system is a failed one. I've seen a new bill that I don't know if it has been late, but the little I've read, the law has not been passed, but it has already failed. I'm sure we will get there. Erasmus wanted to say something.
Yes. Erasmus, what do you want to say?
Yes, to the effectiveness of the system.
Yes.
When you look at the way the rent laws are designed, it says that landlords should not demand for more than 6 months as rent advance. Now, it's very evident that from the framing of the law, it presents a systemic issue. One, it means that the law doesn't actually prohibit payments for more than 6 months. It says that the landlord should not demand. So what it means is that if the tenant offers to pay 1 year or 2 years, the landlord cannot refuse. Because that is how the law has been designed. Now, even the rent controller has gone on to admit that when tenant offers rent for more than 6 months, the landlords can take it. Here, what the problem it creates is that because there's an acute housing shortage or there's a housing deficit in Ghana, a lot of people don't really have a choice, because the landlord could say, okay, how many months are you willing to pay, or how long are you willing to pay for? And if there's someone else who wants to pay for 6 months, someone else who wants to pay for 1 year, or someone wants to pay for 2 years, obviously he will go with the more attractive offer. So coming back to this, ties into the conversation about how the law itself has created that lacuna for the system to be exploited. This then gives landlords, so the landlords go around this by saying that, well, I didn't demand for it, they offered to pay. And so it comes back to how the protection offered to tenants itself does not adequately convey the meaning or the intention of the law, because the law is intended, or the law was designed to protect tenants and landlords respectively. But then when you look at this provision, it's designed towards protection of tenants. But in practice, it doesn't happen because of all the systemic issues that have been raised. And even the rent control themselves do not have the capacity to ensure the enforcement of this law that's in place.
So that's going to be my next. But why has implementation of this provisions of the Rent Act, why have they failed? Why have they not been successful?
Let me speak for the landlords.
You want to speak for the landlords?
One has to do with even the tenants themselves, and I think Erasmus has said it. It has become a bidding war. And now most of the tenants, but I don't really blame them, because if anything, shelter there is a basic need. As to a place to lay your head, you would need it. So now it has become a competition sort of amongst tenants. So if I am a landlord and I'm renting, let's say at East Legon, 2,000 Ghana cedis, and I say 2 years advance, and you are saying you don't have that, and definitely someone else would pay to go and to the place that you are, the person would pay. So even the tenants themselves are outbidding each other. So I think it's a behavioral thing that has to do with not just the institution, but even with the tenant, which I think comes down to the ignorance. Because if they know that this is what the law clearly says, and the law criminalizes this, then statutory rights, illegality, all these things, the law protects. But basic need, I have to sleep somewhere, so.
You see, you mentioned that, there's competition and all that. So even if I'm not ignorant and the person I'm competing with is offering more, I'm not going to get it. So it means that there is something beyond this ignorance argument that you are advancing, right? You see, I mentioned earlier that the law has not even been passed, but it has already failed.
Okay.
I look at small details. You call it rent control. Who wants to be controlled? You are supposed to regulate that space, but you are calling your institution rent control. No, see, I'm sure the camera
Because
has
the landlord
captured me.
will say, what are you coming
Yes.
to control? Where were you when I was
Yes.
building?
Who if you want to come and take my house, you come, you say, oh, you want to pay 6 months, and I'm not going to give it to you. I will not say that because you say 6 months, I'm not going to give it to you. I will say that Obi Abeji. Would you go to rent control to go and tell them that I said I will not give to you? Then you see, we can use different mechanisms to get what we want. One, the law is not being enforced because it failed right from the day it came into enforcement or whatever it's called. Because it is supposed to be rent regulation, not rent control. If you are controlling it, people don't want to be controlled, so they will not do those things that you want them to do. Two, some of the things that are put in place to ensure that the regulation comes into fruition are things that are almost impossible to enforce. You want someone to go and rent before the person goes to register a tenancy agreement. He has finished.
You want someone
To go and rent before the tenancy agreement is registered. Instead of having a standard tenancy agreement there that anyone who wants to rent to a person should come for it.
Okay, I now get it. Because I was going to say, don't you sign the tenancy agreement before you get access to the place?
You are supposed to set the standard.
Okay.
Two, if you want to regulate it, all landlords are supposed to register with the rent regulation department that we have these apartments here we want to give out. That is how you will get the rent. I still don't want to use the control, the rent officer to do the assessment to say that this is how much you are supposed to charge. This is a range and all that. But you say that they should come and register. They will come and register, indeed. But you will not achieve the aim for which you put that system in place.
So before, let me just pause you over there. You know, a couple of weeks ago, we had issues about the university hostels.
Yes.
Being charging very high, exorbitant rent, and we had the rent control department move out of their office. In fact, it was my first time of actually seeing the rent control department actually moving out to different hostels and speaking to students, tenants, and probably landlords as well. Is that the best practice?
Jasmine, it's settings.
Oh, Prince.
For the
Why?
cameras. Oh, you know me, I will say it. Settings is for the cameras. See, as we speak, the Rent Act, the Rent Control Law, because of the time they were made, 86 or so and 63, it means that the newest amongst them is more than 30 years old. All the laws are older than me. You know that there's a new system, there's a new market, the short stay and then the Airbnb. They are not catered for by the law. So when you go to the universities, those people there, they are not tenants. They are not tenants. They are licensees.
I think there was even a petition. They had to even petition them before they stepped in, which shows that our system, it doesn't even prevent, it sort of reacts to the situation rather than preventing it from the end.
That's why I'm saying that it is settings. Whoever went there to check, it doesn't even know the scope of his own powers. Those people are licensees. Would you say that the Rent Act covers licensees? Who are licensees?
I think you should explain that for the benefit
They
of our
are.
listeners.
They only have right of use.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's like the office. When I come in, I only come to use my desk. The fact that it is assigned to me does not mean that I control everything about it. But when you are a tenant, within that period, you are taking care of that particular space.
Okay.
So as a licensee, when your license is revoked, are you not supposed to leave? That's why I'm asking a question. I hope that they watch it. Whoever led that delegation there, I am asking you, which one is my camera so that I speak into it? I am asking you, the Rent Act now and the Rent Control Law, does it take care of licensees? I am inviting that debate. Why are you going there?
So are you saying that was a useless, in quotes, with all due respect, venture?
It will not yield no result. Maybe, you see, sometimes we take people to the court of public opinion. We make noise about things. We know they are not legal. So we make noise about them. And then people always fear the social backlash. And then they go to the drawing board and then say that, okay, we have reduced it. But that's not regulation.
I don't even think that would apply in this case because a lot of times, even with public backlash, within a few days, the noise would just die down and it would just fizzle away. This conversation about charging exorbitant rent, even when I was in school myself, when I entered university in first year and the time I left university, the hostel fees had tripled even during that period, just a short period. And every year we get student bodies, we get petitions every year. People complain about the hike in prices. At the end of the day, for a university that has over 80,000 population, there would always be need for accommodation. So there's the demand way outweighs the supply significantly. So the conversation, the public backlash doesn't do anything to stop them. In fact, I can almost be certain that next year they would increase those prices again because every year consistently the prices keep on increasing and they still have students who within minutes when they open portals for hall registrations, within minutes, seconds, even minutes is probably too far, within seconds the rooms are all booked.
I mean, Erasmus, it's been over 3 weeks since that happened. I would have expected another press conference or something saying that, we've been successful in reducing this rent from X amount to this amount, but we've gone quiet. So I would not. I mean, if Prince is saying it's settings, I don't know whether to agree with that because I've not heard anything.
This is one of the reasons that force people not to even be in hostels, and now they'll end up looking for agents to go and rent, and the agents they are even problematic in the first place. Because they end up charging, I don't rent, so let me leave.
No, but you deal with agents as a landlord unit.
Viewing fee. Like, why? And sometimes they
are all
end
those
up
things regulated by law?
No.
Yes.
They even inflate the prices themselves just to get their cut.
There's a cap on even how much they are supposed to even take.
And the cap, is it outdated? Is it outdated?
There's a law in Ghana called the Real Estate Agency Act. It is less than 5 years old. It requires the agency. That agency has been set up, all right. I have friends who are even on the board and all that. The agency is supposed to have a standard exam to license people as real estate agents. Yes. You see why I'm saying it's systemic. You see, whatever you saw was settings because, see, I mentioned that there's a growing economy or a growing industry, the Airbnb and then the short stay.
Yeah.
Short stay, 1 week, 2 weeks, maximum 3 months, the person is out. It's already furnished.
Okay.
How different is that from the hostels? The hostels, they don't go with their mattresses. The only thing you go there with will be your shirt,
your microwave, or they even have microwaves.
yes. And then your
cooking
bed sheet. There's a mattress there. There's a bed.
There are fridges in some of the hostels too.
Everything is there. You go there as a licensee, you come out. So if if you have those who are doing the Airbnb, the short stay, charging as high as 500 cedis a night, and you don't have a problem with that.
Eunice, you must be really rich.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Charging all these things, you don't have a problem with that. And you go to the universities to speak to the cameras. You are going there because they are students, or you are going there because you can solve a problem. These things get me angry. Oh. I know.
Calm down. Calm down. So basically what we are saying is that, so is it possible for a landlord who accepts rent advance to be jailed? I mean, can he be punished for that? Because I feel the way landlords are walking around with impunity, they are aware that the law is useless.
Jasmine, I think that's where the law separates from the reality at hand. How many landlords have we seen in jail for taking rent advance beyond the 6 months? None. They get to walk away free.
Not even a fine?
No, but the law clearly states that a fine or even imprisonment, but here's the reality. The enforcement bit is not there, and it's a serious issue.
And Erasmus, this relationship between the landlord and the tenant, can we say is contractual, such that it is outside the scope of the Rent Act? Or is it a case that even the contract in itself is illegal because of what the law has actually prescribed?
Okay, so when it comes to contracts, there is a principle that underlines contract, which is freedom to contract. Mm-hmm. What that means is that parties can on their own determine the terms of their contract, and there's liberty to do so. But then again, that freedom must be situated within the framework of the laws that exist. And so if it happens that you execute a contract, and in the process of executing that contract, the contract goes contrary to the law, then we can say that that contract cannot stand the test of legality. Mm-hmm. And so it operates as a factor to invalidate that contract. So yes, you may contract, but that is why we have rent agreements, tenancy agreements. Mm-hmm. You may contract, you may have tenancy agreements, you may have lease agreements, but the basis of your contract should not be one that operates within the outside the parameters or the within the framework of the law. And so there are limitations to that. If clearly your contract demands, if the rent agreement or if the contract demands, specifically demands that you pay for maybe 2 years, 3 years, that is clearly illegal according to the law. And so that freedom of contract has limitations, which must correspond with the existing legal framework.
Eunice, Prince indicated that the law regulating rent advance failed from the very onset. Mm-hmm. How can we enforce a strict implementation or enforcement of the act?
I think the duty is not just one-sided. We shouldn't really pin it on landlord, tenant, or rent. It's a general collective effort. So with the rent control department, I think Erasmus mentioned the issue of they not being resourced enough to undertake their statutory duties, because they are supposed to go on inspections. And I read somewhere that they just have 2 vehicles. Like in general, just 2 vehicles. And how do you expect them, the rent officers, to go around to do all these inspections? So if at least they can be resourced enough to do what they are required under the law. And for the tenants, please know, now AI is their read.
But I am wondering, if you are talking about they not being resourced, as Prince said, they were on a journey. It was just a busybody activity they undertook 3 weeks ago. In fact, they had no business there, but they managed to get there. Yeah. So it means that somehow they are resourced. They are not. But what about the implementation of rent? I mean, the amount to be paid, that they can sit in their office and start something with it, or do they need a special Praise.
See,
Do they need something special we need to provide them with just to get that going?
something just crossed my mind. That the irony of it is the people who are controlling rent, they are finding difficult getting offices. Oh, you've not gone to their offices before?
I've been to the old one at where the Ghana News Agency office is, and now they've moved to, is it the Ministry of Environment? Forgive me if I'm wrong.
So the one at ministries.
The ministry.
When you enter the first office, you see how many people are there, how many tables are there.
That office doesn't look nice. We should
They
speak
are
for them.
under-resourced. Wow. The first one. If they really want them to be a department that will regulate, that's what she was saying. They are woefully under-resourced. The second one is that, you see, I read something in jurisprudence.
Okay.
The sociological and the historical school of thought. And they say something very, very important. I think Roscoe Pound also and Eugene Illich. They say that law is supposed to be for social engineering. If you have a law that is far ahead of the society, it's a bad law. If you have a law that is far behind the society, there's something wrong with the law. So every time society is supposed to work with the law. You have a law that is regulating circumstances that prevailed in 1963. Circumstances that prevailed in 1986. Now, people are buying things from outside Ghana.
Okay.
Aside from inflation, they have import duties. They have the dollar to battle with and all that. So once you say that you want to regulate an industry that is affected by all these things, you are supposed to sit down and take into consideration all these things before you can even say that you want to control how much someone is taking. Because government that is supposed to even provide affordable housing, the housing they call affordable, do you know how much they go for? Yes.
Yeah.
So they say it is affordable housing, but it's for the rich. So even you can't even charge small amounts, but you want the private business person to charge below what he or she can survive in the in the industry. And that is not going to happen. There's supposed to be a total cleanup. That's why I'm saying that the rent bill I saw will not even solve any problem. They have to sit down and reconsider a lot of things. One proposal I saw, which I was very happy about, is the month-to-month rent payment.
Okay.
If you have that system that is supposed to be month-to-month, but it's supposed to be paid in advance, that's okay.
That would be good.
People would look at their salaries and make enough allocation for that, because once you are taking 5,000, you know that you can't go and take rent that is more than 3,000, because it means that month you have to do 100. Breakfast, no lunch, no supper, or 001. You have to use formulas to eat.
Just to survive, to get a place to lay your head.
So people will live within their means.
Yeah.
People will now start registering their premises, their properties before rent. And that's how you'll be able to check those who are charging dollars. Because Bank of Ghana is saying that we are not supposed to do any transaction in dollars unless you have an exception. You've been exempted from that.
Okay.
But people are, when this is a funny story. When I was looking for a place to rent about 2 years ago, I was driving with a colleague from court, and then I saw an advert that 1 bedroom, 2 bedroom, 3 bedrooms at Laboni. And then she was like, Prince, you should call them, maybe. And I called. And then this Arab person, hello, we have this available. I was like, okay, the 2 bedrooms, 800 if you have not, you don't want the furnished one. I was like, okay, where is it? So, Laboni, so $800. I was like, okay, I'll call you back. She laughed and laughed and laughed. You see, the foreigner is here taking $800 for a 2-bedroom apartment. And we want to find that person to regulate that person. How would you do that? You see, unless they register those premises, you know that these properties are registered as residential properties. So anytime we see that there's a tenant there, we can go for inspection.
Yeah.
Okay.
You can go for inspection. This is a situation where the law is also, giving us exceptions that, where the tenant wants to pay. So who is going to report? You want somewhere to sleep. The person has given you that premises and you are paying for it. And now you've entered and you are saying, I'm going to report you for taking this. I'll give you your money, get out of.
If you insist on your rights, you lose
So,
your
so,
right
so
to sleep.
I mean, finally, we seem to be out of time.
Yeah.
What, in just a sentence or two, what advice, first of all, do we have for the tenant, and what advice do we have for the landlord? Maybe you can take any. Erasmus, what advice in such situation where, I mean, the law as we have it right now is not, it's not as it's supposed to be, because people are, the law is not regulating anything at all. So what advice, in the meantime, whilst we wait for a stronger law to be enforced, what do we do?
It's a very difficult one because there are so many layers to this conversation. But briefly, I think that at the very least, most tenants should insist on a rent or tenancy agreement. That should be a very basic prerequisite. So even if your tenancy is going to be more than 6 months, you are going to pay for a year or 2 years, you should demand for a tenancy agreement. That way, you are able to document, or there's an instrument which validates your tenancy while you stay there. It's set out your obligations, and if there's a breach of any of these obligations, you can hold them accountable. Yes, so I think that a lot of these other solutions would take a while to actually implement. Let's say registering, landlords will not be incentivized to do that. So at the very least, landlords should provide tenancy agreements to their prospective tenant to ensure that at least there is an arrangement which regulates that. Because sometimes tenants could also be in breach of the agreement, so landlords may also want to enforce certain provisions against them. So it applies mutually to both sides. So I think for now we can look at doing that.
Okay. Anything?
I would just say to the landlords, yes, we understand you are homeowners and everything, but as we are waiting for stricter enforcement, let's also on our part be more compliant with the law as well. So it will help. It's a general responsibility.
Right. And I hope you would take your own advice.
Oh, definitely.
Okay. Prince?
Mine would go to rent control and then to the general public.
Yeah.
I have observed something. Those who are taking the advance, they get to a point, say after 1 year, and they realize, if I had waited, I would have charged more. Yeah. And they find a way to charge them more. We are talking about. And you know how they do it? They control the payment of utilities.
Okay.
So you
service
see,
charges, is that what they call it?
Water bill will come and they will say that you are paying 200 cedis.
Okay.
You go and check the meter and the whole house is paying 20 Ghana. Light bill, they will never give you, not all of them are using the prepaid. Comes and then they will be doing that. So we have to check that.
Okay.
The second thing I will say is that my experience with rent control has not been that good. Because anytime I go there, I see that they are pro landlords. And whatever the tenant will say is not really, giving weight. They say, what's he dying there? What's he dying there? But you see, my father says that dying and daka, and yes, could be able to body a shiny bag. When you get to Accra, you just rearrange it and you sleep in there. We have to help each other. The law is not good, but that's what we have now. Let's find a way of fitting ourselves into it and see how we can all help each other through this difficult times.
Wow. A very interesting discussion we've had today. Rasmus, thank you very much. Eunice, I'm grateful. And Prince, thank you. I believe our viewers have been educated enough on what is expected of them as tenants and landlords. And of course, I know the rent control also has a very great role to play in this. And so we acknowledge that the rent control is under-resourced, but as much as possible, probably we should go back to the legal framework for which the rent control was instituted in the first place, and probably look at areas you can focus on to ensure that rent is regulated properly so that tenants, as much as the landlords, can be happy. And of course, landlords, be sensitive to the tenants. The economy is not as at its best, and see how best you can ease the financial burden on tenants. So it's been a wonderful discussion. Thank you very much. Viewers, of course, you can comment on any of our social media platforms. And if you are on YouTube, I would advise that you subscribe to our channel, and hopefully we will see you next time. Thank you and take care.